Two of the most popular anime and manga of all time have rivaled each other for a long time, and now two of the biggest fans will battle it out to see which series is better. Naruto versus Bleach!
So point number one, Naruto's had to go from the very beginning of the series to ultimately become Hokage and overcome all adversity and obstacles, opposed to Ichigo where his goals mainly came from him having to save the day from the freak of the week or the villain of the arc. So his goals really just came at a time of desperation, never really having a set motive from the beginning. Point number two, most of Naruto's battles have been driven with many exposition setup chapters that ultimately led up to the villain with a lot of different unpredictable outcomes for each and every battle, opposed to Bleach, which would consist of, for the most part, a small build up to an Rancor or a small villain, and ultimately it would be set up with 1v1, 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 on to the next one. Point number three, the story of Naruto is pretty much set up to where you actually genuinely start to care about a lot of these characters. You feel for their deaths, and when the characters actually pass away or die or something bad happens to them, you genuinely get attachment to them because you get a lot of time to spend with these characters and see them on screen. Opposed to Bleach, when a character dies, at best you say, oh shit, that's crazy, or damn, what the hell happened? But you never really get that sentiment with the characters. You never really get attached because you never really have a set amount of characters that get a lot of screen time and backstory. Point number four, the world building in Naruto leads to countless villages and different parts of the shinobi world. Well, granted, ultimately weren't explored very well, but you still knew they were out there, many different villages hidden in this and that, opposed to Bleach where there's only a select few different places. Karakura Town, Soul Society, Huecamundo, and the Soul Palace that we really didn't get to see. And last but not least, point five, Bleach's plot is set up for each and every battle to come forth, and Ichigo and his friends must train to overcome this foe or this big baddie, opposed to Naruto where the fight's been set up and crafted very nicely, and along the way you learn many different life lessons, and ultimately you get something out of it, whether it's a lesson or some new perspective of the character. And that's my 5 points.
So Bleach, what does it have against Naruto? Let's talk about one of the best villains in Shonen Jump history, Sasuke Aizen. I don't even need to go any further than this. Everybody that's known Bleach knows Sasuke Aizen. The main character's development throughout the series. Development of side characters, so not only the main character but other things such as the captain, such as Komamura, such as Toshiro, such as Gin, such as Aizen. Every character somewhat gets development throughout the series, which I think is a strong point compared to Naruto's. Creative uniqueness in abilities such as Kidos. We got Zanpakutos that can do different things. We got so many different races such as the Beast race, we got the Quincy race. Each of these characters have unique abilities, and I think Naruto only uses repetitive abilities sometimes, and abilities that just come out of nowhere. And flashbacks. Flashbacks are a very strong thing in Bleach, arguably one of the best things, a part in the story, because Kubo tells amazing flashbacks, to which Naruto kind of rehashes them.
Alright, so starting off with the characters, I definitely gotta say, in my perspective, the main core characters of Naruto simply outclass the main core of Bleach characters, because if you look at them, for starters, I guess the mains, Naruto versus Ichigo, for example, Naruto's character, he's gone through many different changes, he's learned life lessons, and ultimately, while Ichigo, to a certain extent, does learn lessons, he tends to regress. If you go to the Fullbring arc, for example, Ichigo goes right back to just kind of crying and just not understanding what he needs to be doing right now and conflicted, opposed to Naruto, when he does ultimately fall down, he pretty much gets right back up and takes from the lessons he learned from Jiraiya or Iruka Sensei and kind of just continues to move forward. So in that regard, I feel as though some of those characters definitely progress. I mean, even if you look at Sasuke, for example, where his character, opposed to somebody like Uryu kind of dances back and forth between wanting to be that, you know, Quincy and loving his heritage, and then ultimately, you know, I want to be Kurosaki, Ichigo's friend, opposed to Sasuke, where, like, yeah, he definitely fluctuated back and forth, but ultimately we find out that the entire time it's mainly that he still really cared about Naruto.
Well, that is a very good argument. The difference with the core characters of Bleach, and if we're especially talking about Ichigo as the main character of this, we're talking more of, yeah, Uryu, the whole thing where he slides back and forth into things. The whole thing with Naruto is that he's chasing after one goal, as well as trying to help Sasuke. So the issue is that because of this downfall of him chasing after Sasuke, he kind of disregards other people, other friends around him, which has been proven many times in like the Pain arc, for example. Though with Ichigo as a character, though I do agree, I feel like seeing his character progress from chapter 1 all the way to where he is now, he's definitely grown and definitely developed, and still finding out that mystery of what he wants to accomplish in life and what the unpredictability of where this series can end, especially with Ichigo, I feel really drives the character of this series.
But I gotta say that as far as like comparing the two, like if we're going Naruto and Ichigo, Naruto, he had a clear-cut goal. Along the way, things got a little bit messy, and while he was chasing after Sasuke, one of the things in his mind was, I need to do this so that I could be a better person for everybody. I need to find this person, bring him back, and change him, so that way I know if I could change this person that is as stubborn as ever, somebody that was at one point my best friend, if I can do that, then I can do for everybody and change the entire shinobi world, because I know I have the power to change this person that is pretty much stuck on their ways. So that's where he was keeping everybody in mind. It's just ultimately he had these goals, and at the end of the day, in comparison to Ichigo's kind of goal is like it slides in and out, like, oh, there's a big baddie, I must stop him right now, opposed to Naruto is like, I'm going to be the best, and if there's somebody in my way or a roadblock, I'm going to make sure to jump over that, but ultimately my goal is clear cut what I want. And that's where I feel as though the main characters at the very least differentiate, where Naruto is kind of like more set, and Ichigo just kind of continues to like, well, I want to protect people, but nah.
Though that is true, Naruto had a very set, selfish goal of just doing it because he wanted to be noticed. Then again, later on down the story, around about the Shippuden part of things, he did it simply because he did eventually want to change the way of the ninja world.
That's growth.
That is growth. Though this is true with Ichigo, I feel like at the start he had very selfish goals of only helping his friends and only people he cared about, but taking on the Shinigami role, Rukia simply stated that you can't kill a hollow just because it's convenient towards you. You've got to do it for everyone, you've got to protect everyone, to which he did get that mindset. Going back into Ichigo, I did feel that because he was carrying on that whole burden of his mother's death and the whole thing of blaming himself, and eventually learning about his whole past and what his true motive is supposed to be, I feel like his character has developed. Yeah, not as soon as Naruto's, but it definitely did develop along the story.
I would just argue that after the defeat of Aizen, if he was still conflicted with everything he went through, a bit concerning. But yeah, that's our points on the whole thing with characters.
On to next topic.
Now, with the story of Naruto, the themes and whatnot, is basically a rags to riches story to a certain extent, with the main character being shunned by everybody looking down on him, and ultimately triumphing, and along the way, a lot of different messages. I think one of the strong points of Naruto's, I guess, story, in a sense, one of the messages, is to kind of not always fight with everybody and try to reason with words, and I think that's something that's very valuable, not only in the context of the story, but in life in general. You don't always have to solve things by fighting. You can sometimes possibly, talk it out and see what happens, whatever. So I definitely think that's one of the strong points with Naruto's story, not to mention the fact that the way it's crafted is it builds up a lot of anticipation for the different villains, and also gives time to shine for some of the side characters. For example, in the Shippuden stuff, when Shikamaru gets his moment, it's a really impactful moment, and you get to see different aspects of these characters as well as they grow, thrive, and change, opposed to with Bleach, a lot of times it's just kind of like, especially for a majority of the series, there was the one big baddie, Aizen, and oh yeah, they gotta fight this Arrancar, and along the way, Kubo will craft a way to kind of connect the characters and have some sort of similarities, like Mayuri and Xylopodos. It's like, oh, they're both crazy scientists, but I think it feels a little bit more powerful in the Naruto story, simply because a big part of it is that this entire group wants to capture this one guy, and they have certain aspects set up to where, like, okay, this will counter this one or whatever. When Aizen, it was just kind of like, yeah, I'm building a powerful fucking army, and don't get me wrong, Aizen is amazing. I'm gonna be real with you, I do love me some Aizen, but it just kind of felt like it dragged along up until that point, and then the later arc, pretty much after the Fullbring and whatnot, kind of feels as though as he went along, Kubo started to add these things where if he would have just simply foreshadowed some of the story events, like, oh, okay, Aizen said one line like, oh, I wonder what the Quincy Quincy's or the sleeping Quincy's are doing right now would have been very powerful, but it feels as though he a lot of times throws these things out there just for the sake of, extending the story, while with Naruto, a lot of the times, for the most part, it definitely feels as though it builds up and we get foreshadowing for later events.
Though I do agree that the story mode for Bleach can be sometimes its weakest aspect in Bleach itself, because Bleach is more of a character-driven story, and unlike Naruto, where it has a very clean cut, this is where it's going to go from chapter 1, Kubo tries to go a route of developing Ichigo's character throughout the story, as well as making each arc relevant to each of the 4 to 5 members within that team that we see at the start of the series. This has been good and bad in bad arcs, such as the Fullbring arc, where it's had very good messages that wasn't exactly presented as well as it should have, but also trying to conflict also other character stories within the story, such as Aizen's whole plan, technically him watching the whole Bleach series, watching Ichigo's life, and it can be a bit daunting in Bleach's case, because a lot of the stuff that we see that have unanswered questions do get revealed way later on down the story, which can be a very mind-boggling thing, like to a good degree. If you keep up with the series, it doesn't exactly catch the reader's attention straight away. It's more of a patient kind of story. So I feel Bleach has a good story, but sometimes the way it's paced and the way it's presented sometimes isn't its strong point. So I think alternatively I have got to give it to Naruto for this, but I do prefer the story to Bleach.
My final point in regards to the story is Naruto, while not every arc is 100% perfect, ultimately it doesn't have a fillerish arc like the Fullbring arc. I'm done.
Hang on, let me think of a comeback to that. Give me a second. No, it just arguably has one of the longest paced war arcs in anime history, but we won't go there.
Madara Uchiha, baby. Just saying.
Oh yeah, and then we'll pull out Kaguya Otsutsuki out of nowhere, but we'll proceed.
Kaguya Otsutsuki, aka the mother of all chakra that started it all to save Six-Fast Mom.
But where was that foreshadowing though?
Foreshadowing Madara was talking. Oh yeah, let's go.
So who won? Only one winner, you decide.